All right, call this meeting to order. Ask that you please stand for the invocation. Commissioner Jones, remain standing for the pledge of the flag.
Dear Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come together to conduct the business of the people of Effingham County. We pray that you will give us wisdom and understanding as we consider all the matters, and that we have a wonderful new year to look forward to. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. New year. We welcome our new commissioner, Jamie DeLoach, to our board. And as it's the first meeting of the new year, the first item of business is the election of a vice chairman. Stephanie, remind me of the procedure.
You, each of the 5 commissioners cast their vote for the vice chairman. I will come around and pick them up and then state the votes as written.
All right, so before each of you should have a ballot, and if you'll place your choice. We don't nominate it.
No, just a vote.
That's why I wanted you to remind me. All right. Why don't you pass them down and we'll pass them over.
I should pick one.
Oh, okay.
I might change one. I might look at it.
Oh.
I have one up asleep or something. Yeah.
I have a vote for Commissioner Jones, Vera Jones. Vote for Commissioner Vera Jones. Vote for Commissioner Vera Jones. Vote for Commissioner Vera Jones. Unanimously, Vera Jones.
Wow, Commissioner Jones.
Commissioner Jones is the new vice chairman.
Do you accept that?
Chairperson.
Our first unanimous vote as a.
What a way to start the year.
How about that? Unanimous, that's good. All right, y'all swap seats. Good swap, thank you.
Well, you still have to sit by there again.
So,
Stay with me. All right. Now that's out of the way. The next item is consideration of a resolution to approve our agenda. Any additions that any of y'all know about or changes? I will tell you that item number 10 under new business, when we get to that, it says consideration to approve commissioner and county administrator travel for Effingham Day. There's going to be some other travel that I want to bring up at that time.
Stephanie, Mr. Copy.
yes.
Is it print out for tonight?
Any other corrections, additions, comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve as stated.
Second. Motion and a second to approve as stated. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Next item, consideration to approve the minutes for the December 9th, 2014 Commissioners meeting. Commissioner DeLoach, you were not on the board at that time, but I know you were here present, so I think it would be appropriate for you to cast your vote on this unless somebody disagrees.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for December 9th as printed.
Second. Motion and second to approve the minutes as written. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Should be noted that public comment should be limited to the agenda items only, and that all documents from this meeting, as are all meetings, are located in the clerk's office and on the Board of Commissioners website. Next item, our consent agenda. First item, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Lee and Lynette Grinder to rezone 3 acres located at 200 Sharehouse Road from AR1 to AR2, map number 398A, parcel number 43 and 44 in the second district. Next item, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by William Spikes Jr. and Frida Winant to rezone 2.59 acres located at 569 Exley Loop from AR1 to AR2, map number 451C, parcel number 51 in the second district. Third item, consideration to approve the second reading of an application by Two Yachts Incorporated to rezone 188.24 acres located on Ralph Run Road between McCall and Little McCall Road from AR1 to AR2, map number 391, parcel number 2 in the 4th district. Item number 4, consideration to approve the second reading of the Water Resources Protection Ordinance and Stormwater Management Local Design Manual. That completes the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve and read. Second.
Motion and a second to approve as read. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. First item of new business. Proclamation. Consider to approve the proclamation to proclaim January 20th, 2015 as Champions Day to recognize the Jaguars football team. January 20th being our next scheduled commission meeting. That's correct?
Yes, sir.
Any discussion or comment?
Good evening. It's my pleasure to ask you to proclaim January 20th as Champion Day. Our 10-under Jaguar football team won the first state championship in youth football. Been a great year for Effingham County Rec, and this just cap off a great year, and that would be the day we'll recognize them and have something for them when we get to the proclamation.
Sounds good.
Always good to recognize young people that do well.
Yes, sir.
And
Great.
And a good program that encourages it.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, discussion? Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve alternative number 1.
Second. Motion and a second. Alternative number 1 is to proclaim January 20th, 2015 as Effingham Football Champions Day. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, sir.
Next item, consideration to approve a technical service support agreement with Physio Control Incorporated.
Good afternoon, Wanda McDuffie, EMS Director.
Good afternoon.
What you have before you is just a staff report stating the current cardiac monitors that we're using. It's from Physio Control, and this is a service agreement that we renew annually. And as a matter of fact, we first purchased our first monitors from this company back in the mid-90s. So we've had a service agreement every year since that time. It's the same thing as what we had brought before you again last year. So we're just asking that we continue renewing this for the service of our monitors.
The only difference is this is a $720.
There is an increase this year.
But that's already covered in our budget.
I'd like to make some of those batteries and stuff.
Yeah, I would too.
No other discussion or motion?
Make a motion to approve alternate number 1.
Motion and second to approve alternate number 1. which is
Second
this one.
by, sorry, the second motion.
Okay. which is to sign the support service plan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried.
I thank you.
You're welcome. Next item, consideration to commence a full rollout for fuel management with White Express and to issue a notice letter to Fuel Man.
Good evening, Fiona Charlton, Purchasing Agent. At the July the 15th meeting, 2014, the board approved a pilot program with Right Express to determine if they offer a more cost-effective option for fuel management than the county's current provider, Fuelman. Staff have established that Right Express do offer a more cost-effective option than Fuelman, and although the actual savings cannot be determined due to the fluctuating price of fuel, during the pilot program, the average savings were approximately $3,000 a month. As Right Express hold the State of Georgia Fuel Card Services Agreement, the county do not need to enter into a contract with them. They only need to execute an addendum to the state agreement, which was done when the pilot program was approved on July the 15th, 2014. The addendum can be terminated at any time with no notice or penalty, just by cancelling the fuel cards. If the full rollout is approved, once it's running smoothly fleet-wide, a notice letter will be sent to Fuelman. As funding is approved in the current budget and the agreement was previously approved and executed, staff recommend alternative number 1. Any questions?
Any questions? Comments? Motion?
Make a motion that we approve alternate number 1.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve alternate number 1, which is to commence the full rollout.
Yes, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, consideration to approve the memorandum of understanding for the emergency evacuation shelter initiative.
Good evening. Edwin Myrick, EMA Director of Effingham County. Now that the majority of our initial planning has been completed, my goal as Director is to place the most resources here in Effingham County at little to no cost to the taxpayers. This memorandum of understanding is aligned with that concept. The resources acquired from this evacuation shelter initiative would provide all the equipment needed to set up and operate our emergency warming shelter, which will open this week due to inclement weather. It would also make Effingham County a puzzle piece, one that would be connected to 33 other Georgia counties to create a state mass care shelter, if it was ever needed. I have looked over the obligations that are required and have found no concerns. Therefore, I respectfully recommend the approval of alternate number 1.
Any questions from the board? Motion?
Make a motion to approve order number 1.
Second. Motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried.
Thank you.
I do believe that's the shortest time you've ever stood here.
It's gonna be a short one.
Next item, consideration to approve certificate of substantial completion for the new sheriff's office.
Substantial completion is the stage in the progress of the work when the work or designated portions are sufficiently complete in accordance with the contract documents so that the owner can occupy or utilize the work for its intended purpose. The sheriff's office moved in to the new sheriff's office on December 15th. Certificate of occupancy was issued temporary on December 1, 2014, and a permanent certificate of occupancy was issued on December 12th. The architect and contractor approved a certificate of substantial completion on December 3rd, 2014, after creating a punch list. This is substantial completion. There's still punch list items remaining. Currently, the county is holding $173,495, of which, if substantial completion is approved tonight, December's draw will be paid in the amount of $98,699, and that would remain that the county would still retain some $74,796 to ensure the final completion of the work. Staff recommends approval.
We still have a bond on top of the retainage, correct?
That's
So
correct.
we got a bond, $74,796 cover the punch list item.
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I talked to Jimmy McDuffie. He's already had his roof patched one time, and it leaked again this past Sunday. So we don't need to okay anything I mean, that's the reason we built a new jail, because it was leaking.
Mhm.
So we don't need to do anything until they get the thing finished, and then we'll pay them their money. If it's leaking now, what's it gonna do in 10 years from now?
I understand.
They've already passed it one time. They've already had one leak in there.
Well, what concerned me was, I sent a text message to Sheriff Kentucky and asked him if he was virtually satisfied, and gave him the numbers and everything, because I also didn't want to end up in the same position that we ended up in the past with. The very problem we had was like the last building leaking, and that's why we have this building, and we promised the taxpayers that wouldn't happen again. So his response to me was that he had been asked himself to sign a letter of substantial completion and was not willing to do it as of yet, because his roof was leaking, doors alarm, camera going out, and locks missing. With that said, that was a big concern to me, because I didn't know he had been asked and was not prepared to do so. And I feel like that's something that the commissioners would need to know before we take a vote on something like this. So, with all that said, you know, he said he would have to see more work done before he would be willing to. And the way I look at it is, he's the one over there living with that building every day. He's the one in the best position to let us know, are we ready to release that kind of money that's our protection to get that stuff done? Because the very thing said when all these other problems in the old building was, you know, I'm like, why can't we make the old builders or engineers responsible? And it's like, well, that's way too down the pipe. The only way you can really make anybody responsible is when you're holding their money. So at this particular time, my position is, until the sheriff becomes more comfortable that enough work is done, that he's ready, since he's especially been asked to do so, then I would want to vote and say, oh, release the money, and he's saying he's not comfortable.
The only thing I would like to add is, I asked him to write the letter. I've had no correspondence back to him. Had I known that he did not feel comfortable, I wouldn't have brought this to you. So my apologies for that.
Did you know that they had already patched the building?
I did know that there was a leak and that it had been repaired. I did not know that there was a subsequent leak.
It leaked again. It's been leaking again. I think they already had to replace some of the roof and the ceiling. And I talked to him since Sunday, and he said that it leaked Sunday in his office.
But if you ask him for a letter like that and he didn't respond, then
I'll make sure that we improve our communication.
I think with the board's permission, we need to table this for next meeting and get our facts together before we take action on it.
Well, if the room is leaking, if any of it's leaking, then we don't need to do anything.
or verify it,
That's
but
the
it's straight.
biggest, I mean, that's the worst thing that could happen to you, the roof leak.
So I'm glad to.
Can I have a motion to table this until the 20th?
I'll be glad to make a motion that we table this item until the next meeting, which is January 20th.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? So table. Next item, consideration to approve a purchase and sale contract for approximately 15.41 acres of land and authorize the chairman to execute the closing documents. I think all of y'all are aware this is 15.41 acres that is presently owned by their and Ron's daughter, and I can't remember her name, Shelby, that adjoins the property that we just closed upon from the Bank of Newington. This, in conjunction with the next item on our agenda, will gives us property all the way through, so it's we'll take action on one at a time.
All the way through to another road.
All the way through to Ralph Ron Road. And gives us the ability to not try to cram everything, but we will have enough property there that we can take this county well into several more years of recreational use. It gives us some versatility with what we might be able to do with the frontage property. Anybody got a question? Have a motion?
Make a motion to approve order number 1.
Motion and a second to approve, which is to purchase. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Next item, approve purchase and sale contract for approximately 27.83 acres of land and authorize the chairman to execute closing documents. As I stated before, this is another 27.83 acres that takes this property we've already closed upon all the way through to Ralph Run Road, which squares the property up, gives us a lot of versatility. The only thing left in there is one little tract that a house lives on, I think, Ms. Moore.
Yes, there's one house, I don't know the acreage of it, but it's not more than 2 or 3, I wouldn't think, probably smaller than that.
This is the, this makes this property very, very personal. Any questions? Motion?
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second. Motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Next item, consideration to approve the first reading. Let me back up just a minute. In conjunction with those two, the board, and I think the press knows because they were there to close it, we did close upon the Bank of Newington property. And the Bank of Newington also at that time donated $10,000 to the rec department, which was published in the Herald, and for the purpose of putting a scoreboard up. So I just wanted to be sure y'all understood that going forward. Consideration to approve the first reading to amend Chapter 34, Flood Damage Prevention Regulations, Section 34-7.
Mr. Chairman, this is another one to clean up ordinances. Actually, I'm sorry, this is not, I was trying to go back to MS4. This is actually, this new flood map will become effective March 16th. And in doing so, we have to make sure that our current flood ordinance meets all the standards, which it does. What we're seeking to change here is the current ordinance basically says in section 34-7 that areas of the special flood hazard identified by the Federal Emergency Management Agency in maps dated December 10th, 2000, or December 17th, 2010. So we need to change that date. All this one does is say the areas of special flood hazard identified by FEMA in its most recently available flood insurance study with accompanying data. So this will keep us from having to go back and revise the ordinance every time the maps change. So all we're doing is basically changing the effective date and making it whatever's current by FEMA. There's no other changes in this document.
That references all the flood maps we just got.
Yes, the one you just answered.
Yeah, that's what I just returned.
Yes, that's the one.
What made me think about it. All right. Okay. Motion.
Make a motion to approve alternative 1.
Second.
The first reading.
Motion and a second to approve alternate number 1. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Next item, consideration to approve a resolution on the Joint Study Committee on Critical Transportation Infrastructure Funding.
You have a resolution included in the packages, which you will find large and blank. It's somewhat silent on what we therefore resolve. This was one of the things that came out of the lunch that you all had with the legislators. Thought it may be a good idea to send up a resolution in support of some alternative funding for transportation on here with the Joint Transportation Committee. You should have in your packages of the final report. I believe I received that New Year's Eve, so it just came out. We have not had a tremendous amount of time to study it, and obviously y'all have not seen it tonight. But what you should have is 2 separate pieces up here. One's a 1-page summary that ACCG put together of the bill. And Stephanie's looking at it like I'm crazy. I stuck it in there late. I hope she printed later. So y'all have it. No. Okay, I put it in there late. I apologize. The other one's a 23-page report. That's a lot more detailed, but if you look at the ACCG one, They really have three suggestions: recapitalize the Georgia Transportation Infrastructure Bank, double the LMIG funding, and convert the local sales tax from motor fuel to a local prepaid transportation tax. And if you look through the report, there's a lot more detailed stuff that has things on transit and so forth. What we are seeking tonight, if we have the ability to do so without this information, is if the board wants to support a resolution. We were trying to put it on tonight, have it there before the session starts on the 12th. Obviously, this is the last meeting we have. I don't know that it's completely, would need to be there before the 12th. We could table this and do it at your next meeting and still send it up. I think would probably be perfectly acceptable. But what we needed guidance on was what the board would like to see support for, if you even want to send in a resolution to that effect. So maybe
They want support for money, or what, I mean, what kind of support they want?
Well,
Do we agree with what they,
yes, sir, I think that's all. It is the legislature would appreciate support from our board, saying that you as elected officials support something, some alternative means of transportation. Whether that's another side of the T-Splosh, whether that's a penny statewide, whether it's raising the gas tax, whatever that may be. If there's some mechanism that y'all support, they would like to see that,
But
to be able to go to the general
Are you saying
assembly.
they want us to study the information and then provide which mechanism we recommend, or just that?
I don't know that you have to. This is what that joint transportation study came out with and recommended. You all may have some other funding mechanism that you'd like to see. I guess the question number one is, does the board want to support or send some sort of resolution for a support of some sort of funding mechanism?
This is basically, this resolution just is recognizing that there is a funding gap, acknowledging it.
Yeah, but because it gets down to a point where it says insert recommendation, there is no, therefore we resolve to, it's not
As
there.
long as we're not saying we're endorsing the study that we haven't actually had time to read.
Yeah.
Well, and largely it's silent. Again, we were trying to bring it today to get it ahead of the legislative session, but I don't know that that's critical if it gets there or not, if it gets there a little bit late.
well,
So-
I got a problem with voting to accept this without having what we're accepting.
Well, I understand, yeah, the only way to do it will be for y'all to sit here tonight and come up with what you accept.
I'd rather table this to the next meeting, because I don't think it's critical. This grew out of a fact, after all these transportation hearings all over the state, I asked the question whenever we were at a meeting with some of our state legislators after the meetings and issues day. I said, where are we winding up? They said, this thing is all over the gamut. Everything from tax and windshield wipers to, raising gas tax to this, to that, and the other. Everything has its shortfalls. But the bottom line is, the regions that passed the T-Splosh are in pretty good shape. The regions that didn't pass T-Splosh are hurt, which we are. So I thought that what we were going to be sending them is a resolution that said something about T-Splosh as to whether or not we would like to see them allow a vote, because the conversation was whether or not we could get together with Chatham County and 2 counties could decide to vote rather than 12 counties in a region or what have you. And that's really what I would like to see done. I don't want to go up a penny on sales tax for T-Splosh and Effingham, but Chatham's not going to do it because that would not be good for trade. Some people will go across the county line to buy something just to save a penny. But if we could get Chatham to get on board with it, and that was the whole idea for regional, but I think we need to table this thing and get something a little more definitive for the commission to look at before we go to vote.
Well, what I would say, Mr. Chairman, that was my understanding as well. The thought behind leaving it blank was this report was supposed to have been out first of November. They asked for an extension, ended up coming out, basically New Year's Day, the very last day of December. And my thought was it may make more sense to support option C, if you will, some number that this joint transportation did. But interestingly enough, what you just said is not any of the options.
It's
That
not.
doesn't exist in here.
And really, the whole purpose for doing this is to help support our district representatives and to help support our legislators because what we have the problem down here is Atlanta region has so much voting power. We need to just do whatever we can to help support our legislators and give them a little more voice to help them help us.
Well, we can certainly flesh it out a little more to bring back to you. I think what we do need though is some idea of what the board would like to see in there. If it's some sort of local 1 cent tax, because one of the suggestions of the Joint Transportation Center is a statewide 1 cent tax, which I don't favor nearly as well as the local, because we all know where it's going.
We all know where it's going north of Macon.
Yeah.
We all know where it's going. We don't get it.
But if it's some form of regional tax, we can certainly write that in, whether it's bring the T-SPLOS back or partnering with 2 or more contiguous counties. The obvious issue with the T-SPLOS is it takes 2 years to fully ramp up, and it has to be on a statewide general primary, which means 16, so we couldn't vote on it until 16.
Right.
Because of the 2-year ramp up here, because of regional roundtables and the executive committees.
But that's part of the reason for doing this, is so that they would go in and change the rules to where we could do
Let's go with the legislation.
before.
Does the Joint Study Committee have a recommendation yet?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
No, it hasn't been given to us.
we have 12. I'm sorry, I put it in the late. I thought Stephanie had printed it in your stuff.
So what I say,
But I'll make sure y'all have it.
I'd like the commission to table this. I'd like to put it on for the 20th. I'd like to have a conversation with Representative Burns, especially, and Bill Hitchens. Burns was on the study committee, and see how we could write this thing to where maybe we can get this thing regionalized.
And that's all I didn't want to do, is write a resolution that's in opposition to what the Joint Study Committee did. I thought they should dovetail more. So we'll get you all a copy of this study and bring it back up.
But you know, in those hearings, I think, Bill, you went to the one that was in Savannah. I think Randy was there. But most of these hearings that I heard, they weren't suggestions on how to raise tax or how to raise revenue for transportation. It was people opposing and saying, you know, do away with the gasoline sales tax, which would hurt us in other ways. Do away with the tax on diesel fuel for locomotives and everything except how to raise money for transportation. But, you know, everybody had to have their opportunity to do it. So with the board's motion, I would like to table this and let's have something definitive to present on the 20th.
Make a motion to table this item until January 20th.
I'll second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So tabled. Next item, number 10. Actually, in your books, there is the Effingham Day at the Capitol on January the 26th and 27th, submitted for your approval. And just before you take a vote on that, I will let you know that the inauguration for Governor Deal is being held next Thursday on the 15th. I almost said 16th again, you saw it. On the 15th. And I don't know if any of y'all are interested in going, but that's time sensitive. We need to approve that tonight as well. Commissioner Loper has expressed an interest in going, and I would like to go.
You want us to have 2 separate votes?
I think so.
Okay.
So let's talk about Effingham Day at the Capitol first. That's what's in your book before you. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the travel expense as listed for the mandate capital.
Second. Motion is second. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. All right, so before you for travel does anyone else have a desire to go to the inauguration?
I went 4 years ago, I think it's good for Effingham to have representation.
I don't think I'm gonna be able to go. I'd love to go, but, well, the one year we did go, there was a terrible snowstorm.
Nice.
That was an event, but anyway. It was great, but I thought I would make a motion that, any commissioner that decided to go would be correctly expensed. So if we change their mind after this, they'd still be able to
I
attend.
think that would be appropriate. So is that your motion?
If you're ready, I will make the motion that we approve any travel expense for any county commissioner for the inauguration of Governor Deal.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried.
I think since you did it as a separate item, we need to add it as new business, number 11.
Well, I thought I covered that, and you can tell me about the rules, but
Sounds like A and B.
yeah, I stated in the beginning before we approved the agenda that I wish to speak on other travel.
Right.
I would
As
consider
listed
that.
under item number 10 is the way that you said it.
So when we do it after the fact, we have to do the whole thing.
So I
I think the intent was to do it at agenda approval and maybe try to make
that was my intent.
It wasn't the intent.
It was discussed at agenda approval, but I don't think they specifically said.
Add as new business item
There's
number
no problem to make it technically correct, so to make it technically correct.
So
So
can
I
I,
consider it agenda approval and be expressive in adding this as new business 11.
all right,
Never made the agenda approval.
can I have a motion to add that as new business 11?
I'd like to make a motion that we add as new business number 11, consideration of travel expense for the inauguration of Governor Deal.
Second.
Motion and a second to add new business number 11 for the travel to the inauguration. All in favor? Any opposed? Now that that's been added, the motion need to be restated or can it stand?
You need to restate it?
You want to restate the motion?
Most,
I will make a motion that we approve travel expense for any commissioner that decides they want to attend the inauguration of Governor Deal.
Second.
all right, have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. All right. That's the last item. Okay. Now, the last time I said that was a record, staff had the reports that took a lot longer than the meeting. Let's see where we're at tonight with that. Let's start with Mr. Allen.
Oh, sit down, Mr. Adam.
You did say
No, I said Mr. Allen.
You did.
Everybody comfortable? Got a good spot? We got a minute.
Here we go.
My list. Does everybody have their list in front of them? Their committee reports? It's on the right. You have attached your, for the months of November and December, your senior citizen reports. The next 3 and 4 we've already talked about, the Friday legislative briefings, winter session of lifelong learning academy and district days at the Capitol, we've all discussed. I left them on there just as reminders, because they're all still in the future. If anyone's interested in any of that, I will presume you'd have probably contacted the clerk by now, but so they're all still on there if anyone would like to go. The
So
inauguration,
Yeah, let's halt there. Does anyone like to go? Deadlines are approaching.
the legislative briefings were the ones that were every Friday, I do believe, beginning January 16th, that are in Atlanta. And really all we needed was if you wanted to attend them, you needed to provide your name. Other than that, you didn't need to do anything. winter session of Lifelong Learning Academy. Obviously, that's, y'all's continuing education. If anybody's interested in that, it is February the 9th, and district days at the Capitol is February the 10th. So they did those to be together. So you could attend those more easily if you wish to.
Do you know when we have to? Registration January the 9th.
Yep, right now this week.
Yeah, the deadlines for housing, I'm not sure if that's the same as registration, but that's when you had to sign to get your hotel room, your discounts anyhow.
But as usual, the ACCG conference will be in Savannah in April too, so we still have that
Yeah, but we can't get enough
credits in.
credits in one that. Remind me, do you remember how much we have to have? We have to have like,
18?
yeah, because you can't get it in 2 days.
Wow.
And if anyone is interested in this, we did not reprint the agenda of the courses being offered on the 9th, but we have that on the Conservative provided if y'all are interested in seeing what's being offered on that particular day. But it was in last month's package, so I didn't reprint it. I just left this on the list. But if anyone wants to, just let me or Stephanie know and get it for you.
I think I still have mine.
So you'll have April, Chairman, and then you'll have October for the Capital Connection. So there are 2 other opportunities.
And Athens.
Mm-hmm.
We should change that.
And I don't remember on district days if you had to sign up for that or not. Again, that was in last month's thing. But it is also legislative briefings is what that's for the legislative advocacy. The policy committee will be giving updates on the key legislation and their stances on PCCGs. We've already covered the inauguration for Nathan Deal, and then there is, and I hope this got any updates on the hospital agreement regarding funding. Did that make the packages? So Joanna may want to discuss that with y'all to tell you what all it means, but it's basically a recap of what has been collected to date in tax money against the $3.6 million that we owe the hospital every calendar year, where we stand on that, what we need to write them a check for. And if y'all recall, you elected to levy the millage this coming year in our name and then make 1/12 payments to the hospital. So the transitionary period between now and then, what that would be, and going to discuss all of that with y'all. But all the numbers should be in the packages up there. That is all that I have, Mr. Chairman.
All of that study is in here. The transportation,
Oh, it is in there?
it's in here.
Okay. Yeah, there should be a 1-page that came from ACCG, which is their summary, and then a 23-page actual report that came from the Joint Study Committee.
Gotcha. All right. Adam, you got something?
Nothing.
Miss Joanne, did you want to make a comment on this hospital?
And, I believe in your package, you already have a reconciliation. As you know, the agreement called for 3.6. Currently, we're showing a little over $3 million collected. That leaves us right at about $529,000. And checking with our tax commissioner today, Linda McDaniel, there's about $542,000 for 2014 that's still on her books. She is looking to do some courthouse sales, and she feels like that we should get this in, fairly shortly. So we will be extending that disbursement and then levying a tax come June to fulfill the next year's 3.6. But we will need to disperse those funds and then allow for reimbursement of those funds once Linda is getting those funds in.
Anybody have any questions on that? I still think it's gonna wind up being a cleaner, neater thing when all is said and done. It's gonna be a ripple while we're doing this transition, but it's going to make it a lot neater after. I mean, the board guaranteed the money, so.
It's just during this transition time that there is the potential for the cash outlay until we actually levy that tax. My hope is that we will get in most of this $542,000 to offset what we will disperse and then levy in June. We of course will have to wait until those funds come in, generally September, October, November, December. So this first year will be a little bit of a cash flow.
And this was very clear when we were discussing this.
Yes.
And I think the idea would be on the 20th, there will be an item on your agenda to authorize the payment of that outstanding balance. Joanna just wanted to let you know now where we stood, so, but before that came out. And then again, going into next year, they will continue to collect taxes. We just have to guarantee the one-to-one payments get made. Any deficit we have to fund quarterly. I believe it's correct. Quarterly, we reconcile that, so we'll true up on money quarterly. So hopefully that tax will, like she said, there's, about $500,000 outstanding, plus we'll get TABT and some of the mobile home taxes and so forth. So there will be some revenue coming in ahead of November.
Well, if you remember when we started this, they had only received about $700,000 at that point. So we've gained that difference, over the last few months. That tells you how much of those funds come in during that period of time. And so, getting through this first year, yes, we will have some cash flow that we will have to do. But I think, as the chairman has said, once we get through this initial year, we will be able to more readily handle it.
Sounds good.
Thank you, ma'am. Anything else?
Sir?
Well, this is record setting here.
Mr. Chairman, before you wrap up, if you will, I'd like to make mention of a letter from the hospital to Commissioner DeLoach and Commissioner Floyd on the expiring appointments of your district appointees. They will expire in February 2015, so we will need to.
How long are these terms? Is that 2 years?
4 a year.
Because when I first was elected, I nominated Mr. Oliver. I'm surprised that it's only 2 years. I thought it was a 4-year term.
4 years.
Who's on there now for him?
For you?
I know who's on there. When mine's up too. Mine is up, and his is up too.
Because I'm talking to Mr. Oliver.
Y'all are on
That could have filled the expired term.
Okay.
And then, just verify what's that date again?
Ray Rathdown. Yes.
And what's the date?
February 2015.
Okay. And to refresh that process, there's 3 names, they're interviewed, they select one or reject all 3, and then they fresh set up 3 we have to go forward. Where they have to choose one of those.
Normally nominate one, but in this case you nominate 3.
You can potentially nominate 6.
And the name they should be in where they need to be in now.
We need it as soon as possible because we'll have to approve it on our sometime before that.
Stephanie, if you email them and ask them to, for clarification on everybody, just like when the last appointee was and
The hospital?
Yeah, we would do that.
Yeah, verify, because I remember specifically asking Ms. Yarlow if she wanted to serve about 4 years.
It seems like it's time for mine, but because I've appointed when I first got in office. Probably as you have time for any of those appointments.
It appears according to this spreadsheet is 2016. Robin Massey, is that your person?
I just allowed the person that's there to stay.
I don't believe she's currently serving on she resigned.
See, that's what I'm saying.
I'll check with.
Email them and ask them for clarification.
Absolutely.
Like I think Tommy Eggley expired. He either needs to be reappointed.
But he said he was staying on there the last term, but he wanted to get off now. Anyway,
Well, who's appointed to Commissioner?
he's my appointment.
So while we're cleaning up the hospital, make a list of everybody and
Yeah, I have a
let's
list.
do them all,
Yeah.
not just the two that
That's
sent us the letter.
There's a couple more out there, including the IDA board and the rec board, so we'll go on.
I think we had to.
Will be five out the eight.
That's true. That's true. It was our first or second meeting.
Okay. Wanda, since you're here, you got anything you want to say?
I'm not prepared to say anything this time. I'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Clint?
I'm good.
Commissioners? Barb, you got a brief over? Very good.
The only thing I would mention, I've been approached, and I know with all some others, the 4-H's shooting sports is trying to find a home, to property. I'm mainly talking about it one time, but anything we may have. I know in other counties they do them on closed landfills, where there's not a lot of houses around. Just something to try to look at.
Where does the sheriff do their practice?
They're central, and they have actually talked with someone with the sheriff's office, and they may be interested in doing something joint.
That seems like the simplest way, because they already shoot.
Yeah, at a pistol range, I don't believe they can shoot shotguns either.
Okay, so these are long guns too.
Anyway, that's that. That's all I got.
Jamie, you got anything you want to say?
Short and sweet. Won't be like this all the time.
No, they won't. Don't get used to it.
Reggie?
I'm good to go. Keep my big mouth shut.
All right.
All right. Motion.
Give me a motion or somebody.
We got executive session. Make motion to go into executive session. So we do executive session. Personnel, property, and pending litigation. Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn the executive session. All in favor? Any opposed? We stand so adjourned. All right. Next item, consideration to approve the December 9th, 2014 executive session minutes. Each of you have them before you. Can I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the executive session minutes from December 9th, 2002.
Motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? They stand so approved. Any other business to come before this commission?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? We stand adjourned.